Finally, the leech is gone.
I didn't cry when I saw the post. That's the part I remember most clearly. Not what she wrote, not the photo she chose, me carrying a box to my car, back turned, looking small, but the fact that I felt nothing at first. Just this cold, clean absence where something should have been. Finally, the leech is gone. 3,217 likes in the first 4 hours. I know because I kept refreshing, kept watching that number climb like stock prices, like proof of something I couldn't name yet. The comments loaded slowly. My phone was old. One of the things my sister had mocked in a previous post I hadn't known about until later. The screen had a crack running through the upper left corner from when I dropped it rushing to a job interview 6 months ago. An interview I didn't get. An interview my mother had asked about every single day for 2 weeks afterward, her voice carrying that specific tone of disappointment that didn't need accompanying words. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me go back. I moved out on a Tuesday in March. It wasn't dramatic. There was no fight that morning, no final argument that pushed me out the door. I'd told them the week before that I'd found a place. A basement studio 40 minutes away, $600 a month including utilities. Windows so high and narrow, the sunlight came in strange and angled like in an aquarium. My mother had been folding laundry when I told her. She didn't look up from the towels, just kept matching corners with mechanical precision. "You can't afford that," she'd said. "Not a question. I'll manage." "On what income?" I didn't answer, she didn't press. The towels went into their basket, the basket onto the counter, her hands already reaching for the next load. The conversation was over. My father had been easier, mostly because he wasn't really present. He'd nodded when I mentioned it that evening, eyes on the television, and said something about personal responsibility. I think he was pleased. It fit into his worldview. That people should be independent, self-sufficient, unburdensome. That I'd been a burden wasn't stated outright, but it hung there between us like weather. My sister Emma hadn't been home when I told them. She'd been at her fiancé's place. Derek, dental student, nice car, parents who owned a vacation home near a lake whose name I could never remember. She'd been engaged for 8 months. The wedding was planned for June. I was not in the wedding party. "You understand," she'd said when she told me, her voice careful in that way people use when they're delivering news they know will hurt, but have already decided is justified. "It's just, Derek's sisters are both bridesmaids, and I have my college friends, and his cousin who's really close to us, and it would just be awkward to, add more people." I'd said I understood. I think I even smiled. So on that Tuesday, I packed my car, a 2006 Honda Civic with 170,000 miles and an air conditioner that only worked on the highest setting, and I loaded it with boxes I'd gotten from behind the grocery store, my books, my clothes, kitchen items my mother had said I could take, mismatched plates, cups with faded logos, a set of knives she'd replaced the year before, things she didn't want. No one helped me carry anything. My mother stayed in her room. My father left for work early. Emma had stayed at Derek's the night before and wasn't expected back until evening. I made 3 trips down the driveway. On the last one, I stood in the doorway of my childhood bedroom, Emma's old room that I'd moved into when she'd upgraded to the master suite after college, and I looked at the pale blue walls, the ceiling stain from where the roof had leaked 2 winters ago, the closet where I used to hide during fights I didn't start and couldn't stop. Then I closed the door and left. I saw the post at 11:47 p.m. that night. I'd spent the day unpacking in that basement studio, arranging my few possessions in ways that made the space feel less empty. I'd bought a shower curtain at the dollar store, plain white, functional, and hung it carefully. I'd organized my books by height on a shelf I'd found on the curb 3 blocks away, tested the stove burners, tried to figure out the thermostat's illogical numbering system. Around 10:30, I'd made tea in one of my new old mugs and sat on the futon I'd bought off Craigslist for $75. The previous owner had been a graduate student moving across the country. She'd seemed relieved someone would take it. The springs creaked when I sat down, but it was mine. I'd opened Facebook without thinking. Muscle memory, boredom, the need to feel connected to something. Emma's post was 3rd in my feed. The photo first, me from behind, carrying that box. I was wearing the gray sweatshirt I'd had since high school, the one with the stretched-out neckline, My hair needed washing. The box looked heavy, I remembered that. 1. The books. How my arms had shaken slightly when I'd lifted it. Then the text. Finally, the leech is gone. Time to reclaim our space and our peace. Hashtag fresh start. Family first. Hashtag no more dead weight. The emojis felt important, celebratory, like she was announcing good news. I read it 3 times. The likes were already in the hundreds. I watched them increment. 287, 291, 305. Then I scrolled to the comments. Aunt Teresa. About time, you've been patient enough. Proud of you for setting boundaries. Derek's mother. Family shouldn't be taken advantage of. Good for you both for standing firm. My cousin Marcus, who I hadn't spoken to in 5 years. Some people never learn to stand on their own 2 feet. Emma's college roommate, someone I'd met twice. You're such a good sister for putting up with that for so long. You deserve this fresh chapter. And then 3 comments down, I saw it. My mother had written, no more cooking or laundry for a failure. Time to focus on the children who contribute. My hands went numb. The children who contribute, plural, as if I'd been subtracted from that count. I kept scrolling. My father hadn't commented, but he'd liked several responses, including one from someone I didn't recognize. Unemployed people should learn to live on their own instead of draining hardworking families. 3,217 likes. I set the phone down on the futon beside me. The screen stayed lit for a moment, then dimmed, then went black. Outside, someone's car alarm went off. It wailed for 30 seconds, cut out, started again. Eventually it stopped. I picked up the phone and read the post again. Then I read the comments, all of them. There were 284 comments by the time I stopped counting. Some were from people I knew. Emma's friends, mostly, high school acquaintances, neighbors from our old street, Derek's extended family, a few distant relatives I'd seen at Thanksgiving, dinners but couldn't name. Others were strangers, friends of friends, people who saw the post shared in some group I didn't have access to. The themes were consistent. That I was lazy, that I was entitled, that I had taken advantage of my family's generosity, that it was about time someone set firm boundaries, that Emma was brave for speaking her truth, that I needed to learn responsibility, that some people never grow up, that my parents had done their best, that they deserved peace now, that I should be grateful for what I'd been given, that leaving was the least I could do. Someone wrote, "This is why participation trophies ruined a generation." Someone else, "I bet she never even said thank you." Another, "Some siblings are just takers. Biology doesn't mean you owe them anything." My mother had liked that one too. There was a rhythm to it, a reinforcing pattern. Each comment validated the last, each like added weight. By the time I reached the bottom, a narrative had been constructed, solid and complete. I was the problem. I had always been the problem. My removal was not just justified. It was necessary, overdue, a relief. I set the phone face down on the futon. The apartment was very quiet. I could hear the refrigerator humming in the kitchenette, water running through pipes in the walls, footsteps from the unit above me, someone walking from one room to another. I didn't cry. I want to be clear about something. I had not been unemployed by choice. I'd been laid off 14 months earlier from a job I'd held for 3 years. Administrative work at a medical billing company. The entire department had been downsized, replaced by software. They'd given us 2 weeks' notice and 4 weeks of severance. I'd applied to 340 jobs in the year that followed. I tracked them in a spreadsheet. Position title, company, date applied, follow-up dates. I'd gotten 7 interviews, 2 offers, both rescinded when the companies instituted hiring freezes. I'd worked 3 part-time gigs during that period. Retail, seasonal, grocery store stocker, 4 a.m. shifts, dog walking for an app that took 40% of the booking fee. None of them had lasted more than 2 months. The scheduling was inconsistent. The pay didn't cover rent anywhere I'd looked. I'd paid my parents $400 a month to stay in that room. It was what I could afford. It was less than market rate. And my mother reminded me of this frequently. I did my own laundry. I cooked my own meals when I could afford groceries beyond the staples. I cleaned the bathroom I shared with no one because Emma had her own ensuite. But those weren't the things people saw. What they saw was a 29-year-old woman living with her parents. unemployed, single. No degree beyond a 2-year associate's from community college, finished 8 years ago when money and focus had both run out. What they saw was someone who hadn't figured it out yet, someone who didn't contribute, a failure. I didn't sleep that night. I kept picking up the phone, opening the app, refreshing the post. The likes climbed, the comments multiplied, people were tagging other people, sharing it to their own timelines with commentary. This is exactly what I was talking about. Some people really do just take and take. Boundaries are healthy, people. At 2:18 a.m., my phone buzzed with a message. Emma, I know you saw it. Don't make this a thing. You know how you get. I stared at that for a long time. How I get. I didn't respond. 3 minutes later, another message. I'm not apologizing. Someone needed to say it. I turned the phone off. In the morning, I turned it back on. 624 missed calls. The number seemed impossible. I checked it twice. The call log was full of repeating names. Mom, Emma, Dad, Mom, Emma, unknown number. Mom, Emma. The voicemails started around 6 a.m. My mother's voice tight and high. You need to call me right now. What you did is unacceptable. Call me. Emma, furious. Are you serious right now? Do you have any idea what you've done? Call me back immediately. My father, for once, engaged. This is not the way to handle things. You're making this worse. Call your mother. I didn't listen to all of them. I skipped through, catching fragments. Completely out of line. Embarrassing this entire family. Need to fix this now. Delete it immediately. I opened the text messages, 533 unread. Most from Emma and my mother, some from relatives, a few from numbers I didn't recognize. Emma's messages were the longest, paragraphs of rage and justification and demands. How dare you? After everything we've done for you? You've made me look like a monster to everyone I know. Derek's parents are asking questions. This is sabotage. You're so selfish you can't even see what you've done. My mother's were shorter but came in clusters, one after another like drumbeats. Call me. Now! I mean it. This is not how we raised you. You're making a mistake. People are asking me questions I don't have answers to. Fix this. My father's single text. Your mother is very upset. This was unnecessary. I set the phone down on the small folding table I was using as both desk and dining surface. Then I made coffee in the drip machine I'd found at Goodwill for $4. I sat on the futon with the mug in both hands and watched the light come through those high, narrow windows, angled and strange. I should tell you what I did. The night before, after I'd read every comment, after I'd seen my mother's words and my father's likes, after I'd understood fully what they thought of me, I'd made a decision. It wasn't revenge, not exactly. It was just honesty. I'd screenshot the original post, then I'd written my own. I didn't tag anyone. I didn't share Emma's post. I just wrote what was true and attached the image. My post said, "This is my sister's announcement about my moving out." What it doesn't mention, I paid rent, I bought my own food, I did my own laundry, I was laid off 14 months ago and have applied to 340 jobs. I worked part-time when I could find it. I left because I found a place I could afford alone, even though it's small and far from everything. I thought moving out was what they wanted. I didn't realize it would be celebrated like this. I didn't know my mother thought I was a failure worth announcing. I didn't know my father agreed. I just wanted you all to see the whole picture. That was all. No accusations, no insults, no defense beyond facts. I'd posted it at 1:43 a.m. and turned off my phone. By morning, my post had 7,000 shares. I learned this when I finally opened Facebook again around 10 a.m., after I'd showered and dressed and tried to eat toast that tasted like cardboard. The comments on my post were different. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Your family should be ashamed. 340 applications? That's not lazy, that's persistence. I can't believe your mother said that publicly. You deserve so much better. This broke my heart. People were angry, not at me, at them. Someone had found Emma's post and screenshot the comments, highlighting my mother's words, my father's likes. Those screenshots were spreading faster than my original post. Someone else had gone through Emma's profile, found older posts about wedding planning, calculated how much the wedding was costing based on her vendor tags and venue mentions. They'd posted a breakdown. This family has $40K for a wedding but shamed their daughter for being unemployed during a pandemic recovery. Someone had found my LinkedIn profile, seen the timing of my layoff, connected it to news articles about my former company's mass downsizing. They'd posted about it with the caption, "She didn't quit. She was laid off with 60 other people." This family blamed her for corporate greed. The narrative was shifting. No, it was being corrected. People who had liked Emma's post were deleting their likes. Some were commenting apologies on mine. Others were going back to Emma's post and commenting there, asking why she'd lied by omission, why she'd humiliated family publicly, what kind of person celebrates making someone homeless. I scrolled through it all with a detachment that felt like floating. This wasn't what I'd intended. Or maybe it was, I don't know anymore. I just wanted someone to see the truth. I hadn't expected thousands of people. I hadn't expected the anger on my behalf, the way strangers were defending me with more vigor than my own family ever had. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. The messages from Emma turned desperate around noon. "Delete the post. Please. You've made your point. People are calling me at work." Derek's parents saw it. His grandmother called my mom crying. "You're ruining my wedding. Please just delete it." My mother's messages were similar but angrier. "Take it down now. You're embarrassing all of us. People from church are asking questions. Your aunt is getting messages. This is cruel. How can you do this to your sister? She's getting married in 3 months. You're destroying her happiness. Is that what you want?" My father finally called. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail. "I don't know what you're trying to accomplish, but this needs to stop. Your mother is beside herself. Emma is in tears. This is family business, not public entertainment. Take down the post and we can discuss this like adults. This is not who we raised you to be." I listened to it twice, then I deleted it. By evening, my post had 89,000 shares. Local news outlets were picking it up. Daughter exposes family's public shaming after finding affordable housing. Bloggers were writing think pieces about performative cruelty and social media validation. Someone had started a GoFundMe for me without my permission. It had raised $3,000 before I even knew it existed. Emma's post had been deleted, but the screenshots lived forever. People had saved everything. The original text, the photo, every comment, especially my mother's. My father's likes, the whole ugly structure of it, preserved in pixels and outrage. Emma's Facebook was now private. My mother had deactivated hers entirely. My father didn't have social media, but people were finding him through his work email. His office receptionist apparently fielded 17 calls that day from people asking to speak to him about the daughter situation. The missed calls on my phone had stopped around 4 p.m. The messages slowed to a trickle. The last one from Emma, sent at 5:47 p.m. "I hope you're happy now. You've gotten exactly what you wanted. Everyone thinks I'm a monster. Derek is questioning everything. Mom won't stop crying. Dad won't talk to anyone. And you're sitting there playing victim like you always do. This is who you are. This is what you do. You can't handle people being honest about you, so you burn everything down. I will never forgive you for this. Never." I read it sitting on the futon in the fading aquarium light. Then I blocked her number. I want to be honest about something. I did feel victorious for a while. Not happy exactly, but validated, seen, believed. For years, not just the 14 months of unemployment, but years before that, I'd felt like I was wrong about my own life. Like my perception was faulty. My family had a way of reframing everything, of making my hurt seem like sensitivity. My boundaries seem like selfishness. My needs seem like demands. When I'd tried to talk to my mother once about how Emma got more support, more patience, more grace, she'd said, "Emma doesn't need to be handled carefully. She's resilient. You've always been fragile." When I'd mentioned to my father that it hurt when he forgot my birthday, but never Emma's, he'd said, "Emma makes hers a bigger deal. If you want people to remember, you have to remind them." When I'd asked Emma why she never invited me to things with her friends anymore, she'd said, "You make everything awkward. You don't know how to just have fun." I'd started to believe them, started to think maybe I was too sensitive, too needy, too difficult. Maybe I did make things awkward. Maybe I was the problem. But the post, my post, had shown me something different. Thousands of strangers had looked at the same situation and seen what I'd seen, had felt what I'd felt, had recognized cruelty dressed up as boundaries, Humiliation disguised as honesty. I wasn't wrong. I'd never been wrong. That knowledge felt like power, but power doesn't keep you warm at night. The first week in the apartment was very quiet. I set up routines, woke at 7 a.m., made coffee, applied to jobs. I was up to 380 applications now, made lunch, took walks around the neighborhood, learning which streets had sidewalks and which didn't, made dinner, read, slept. The futon springs creaked every time I moved. The refrigerator hummed constantly, a sound I couldn't block out. The people above me fought sometimes. I could hear muffled shouting, doors slamming, then silence. I didn't turn on the TV. I'd sold it before moving, needed the $60. I didn't listen to music. It made the apartment feel more empty somehow. I just existed in the quiet. The post eventually stopped spreading. The news cycle moved on. The GoFundMe someone had started reached $4,200 before I contacted the platform and had it shut down. I didn't want money from strangers. I didn't want this to be a charity case. I wanted a job. I wanted a life. I wanted to stop feeling like I was waiting for something to change. 3 weeks after I moved out, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer. But it was 10 a.m. on a Wednesday, the time when real calls happen, so I picked up. Hi, is this Jessica? Yes? This is Karen from Millbrook Health Systems. We received your application for the Patient Services Coordinator position. Are you still interested? I sat down on the futon. Yes, absolutely. Great, we'd like to bring you in for an interview. Do you have availability this Friday? I had availability every day, every hour, but I said, Friday works perfectly. Wonderful, how's 2 p.m.? That's great. She gave me the address, instructions for parking, what to bring. I wrote it all down on the back of an envelope, my hand shaking slightly. We'll see you Friday, Jessica. Thank you so much. I hung up and sat there in the aquarium light. Then I cried. Not because of the interview, though that was part of it, but because no one in my family would know. I had no one to tell, no one who would be happy for me, no one who would ask how it went or wish me luck or help me pick out what to wear. I was alone with this small, fragile piece of hope, and I had to hold it carefully all by myself. I got the job. They called the following Tuesday. Starting salary, $42,000. Health benefits. 2 weeks PTO. Start date in 10 days. I said yes before she finished explaining the onboarding process. I wanted to call someone, to share it, to hear someone say they were proud. Instead, I walked to the grocery store and bought ingredients for a real meal: chicken, fresh vegetables, rice, things I'd been rationing or skipping. I cooked carefully, following a recipe on my cracked phone screen, and I ate at the folding table with NPR playing on my laptop. It was enough. It had to be. My mother called 6 weeks after I moved out. I'd unblocked the numbers by then, not because I'd forgiven anything, but because the silence had started to feel like hiding, and I was tired of hiding. I answered on the 4th ring. Jessica? Hi, Mom. A pause. I could hear her breathing. I think we should talk. Okay. Not on the phone. Can you come to the house? No, another pause, longer this time. We're still your family. Are you? That's not fair, isn't it? She sighed, that particular sigh that meant I was being difficult. Your sister is very hurt by what you did. What I did? You humiliated her publicly. You know how people talk. I told the truth. You told your version. No, I told what happened. You can check the screenshots if you need to remember. Jessica, you called me a failure, Mom, on Facebook, where 3,000 people could see it. You said you were done cooking and cleaning for a failure. Silence. I was upset. You were honest. That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? I meant we were all frustrated. You have to understand how hard it's been, having you at home, not contributing. I paid rent. I worked when I could find work. I applied to over 300 jobs. That's not the point. Then what is? The point is, you're our daughter and we expected more from you. I closed my eyes. There it was, the thing that had always been underneath everything else. The disappointment. The sense that I'd failed some test I didn't know I was taking. I have a job now, I said quietly. What? I got a job. I start Monday. Full-time, benefits, good salary. I'm going to be fine. A pause. Then, that's wonderful, honey. See? We knew you could do it if you really tried. I hung up. Emma texted me 2 months later. The wedding was in 3 weeks. The message was long, rambling, clearly written and rewritten several times before sending. The summary: she was sorry things had gotten out of hand. She understood I'd been going through a hard time. She hoped we could move past this because family is important. She wanted me to know I was still invited to the wedding, even though I wasn't in the wedding party, and she hoped I would consider coming because it would mean a lot to Mom and Dad. No mention of the post. No acknowledgement of what she'd written, what Mom had written, what they'd all agreed to publicly. Just this careful diplomatic language that made it all sound like a mutual misunderstanding. A rough patch. Something we could move past if I would just be reasonable. I read it 3 times, then I wrote back, "I hope you have a beautiful wedding. I won't be there." She didn't respond. I didn't go to the wedding. I thought about it. Imagined walking in, seeing everyone who'd liked that post, who'd commented, who'd agreed I was a leech and a failure. Imagined my mother's careful smile, my father's handshake, Emma's relief that I'd gotten over it. Imagined sitting through the ceremony, the reception, the speeches about family and love and commitment. Imagined going home afterward to my basement apartment and feeling smaller than ever. So I didn't go. Instead, I worked, learned my job, got good at it, made one friend, then another, saved money, bought a better futon, fixed the crack in my phone screen, started therapy. My health insurance covered 8 sessions, and I used all 8, then paid out of pocket for more. I learned words for things I'd felt but never named: scapegoat, emotional neglect, triangulation, golden child syndrome. I learned that families can be structured around hierarchies that feel natural until you step outside them and see how strange they are, how arbitrary, how cruel. I learned that love doesn't always look like love from the inside. A year after I moved out, I got a promotion. Not a huge one, just a step up, more responsibility, a $6,000 raise, but it felt significant. Proof of something. I celebrated alone, bought takeout from the nice Thai place 2 neighborhoods over, the one I'd been saving for special occasions. Ate it on my new futon, which was actually a sofa bed I'd gotten on sale. Watched a movie I'd been meaning to see. It was enough. More than enough, actually, because the thing I'd learned, slowly, painfully, over those 12 months, was that enough didn't require witnesses, didn't require validation, didn't require anyone else to acknowledge it. I was enough. The job was enough. The apartment was enough. The life I was building, small and quiet and entirely my own, it was enough. My mother called on my 30th birthday. I almost didn't answer, but something, curiosity maybe, or the lingering hope that people can change, made me pick up. "Happy birthday, Jessica." "Thank you. How are you?" "I'm good, really good, actually." "We miss you." I didn't respond to that. "Your father wanted me to call. We were thinking maybe you could come to dinner sometime. Next weekend, maybe? We could talk. Really talk." "About what?" "About everything, about moving forward." "Has anything changed?" A pause. "What do you mean? Do you understand why I left? Why I posted what I posted? Do you understand what that did to me? Seeing what Emma wrote? What you wrote, what Dad liked?" "We've been through this, Jessica." Everyone was upset. Everyone said things they didn't mean. Did you mean it? Did I mean what? When you called me a failure, when you said you were done cooking for a failure, did you mean that? Silence. I was frustrated. "That's not an answer. Jessica, you're not being fair. I need to go, Mom." "Wait." I hung up. This time, I blocked the number again. "I want to tell you that there was a moment of clarity, a clean resolution, a confrontation where I said everything I'd always wanted to say, and they heard it and understood and apologized and we healed. But that's not what happened. What happened was slower, quieter, less satisfying in the way stories are supposed to be satisfying. What happened was I stopped waiting for them to understand, stopped waiting for the apology that would make sense of it all, stopped checking to see if they'd noticed I was gone, really gone, not just physically distant, but emotionally unreachable. I built a life they weren't part of. I made friends who didn't know about the post, about the wedding I didn't attend, about the family I didn't speak to. Friends who knew me as Jessica, the patient services coordinator who was good at her job and liked Thai food and had a surprisingly deep knowledge of obscure documentaries. I dated someone for a few months. It didn't work out, but it was kind while it lasted. He never met my family. I never offered. He never asked why. I moved to a better apartment. First floor, real windows, a kitchen with a full-size stove. I hung art I'd bought from a street fair. I adopted a cat from the shelter, a nervous tabby who hid for 3 days before deciding I was safe. I lived. Sometimes people ask if I regret the post, if I think I went too far, if I wish I'd handled it differently. The truth is complicated. I don't regret telling the truth. I don't regret defending myself. I don't regret showing people what had been done to me in public, with celebration, with 3,000 likes. But I also don't think it fixed anything. The post didn't make my family understand, didn't make them sorry, didn't create the closure I thought it might. What it did was break something that was already broken. It exposed the crack that had always been there, the one we'd all been pretending wasn't structural. And once it was exposed, there was no covering it up again. Maybe that's the real consequence. Not the shame they felt or the apologies they didn't make, but the permanence of it. The way it ended something that had been ending slowly for years. I saw Emma once, about 18 months after I moved out, completely by accident. We were in the same coffee shop in a neighborhood neither of us lived in. She was with someone I didn't recognize. I was alone, working on my laptop in the corner. Our eyes met across the room. She looked different, thinner maybe, tired. Her hair was shorter. She wasn't wearing a wedding ring yet. Maybe she'd had it resized, or maybe the wedding had been postponed, or maybe something else had happened that I'd never know about. She looked away first. I went back to my work. 5 minutes later, I glanced up and she was gone. I don't know if she left because of me. Maybe she'd finished her coffee. Maybe she had somewhere to be. Maybe seeing me there, in that neutral space, doing something as ordinary as working in a coffee shop, was more than she could handle. I finished my work, closed my laptop, walked home. The cat was waiting in the window. I think about the post sometimes, about that night when I'd sat in the aquarium light and written those words, simple, factual, true. About how the truth had been enough to topple the entire structure they'd built around me. About how fragile that structure must have been if simple honesty could destroy it. I don't have access to the post anymore. I deleted it eventually, months later, when the notifications finally stopped and the think pieces dried up and the internet moved on to the next moment of viral outrage. The screenshots still exist somewhere, I'm sure. The internet keeps everything. But I don't need it anymore. I don't need the proof. I know what happened. I know what they did. I know what it felt like to see my own mother call me a failure where the world could see it. I know what it felt like to be celebrated as gone. And I know what it felt like to leave anyway, to survive it, to build something else. My therapist asked me once what I would say to them if I could. Not what I wanted them to understand. We'd established that was impossible. That understanding required willingness, and they'd never been willing. But what I would say. For me, for closure. I thought about it for a long time. Finally, I said, I would tell them I'm okay, that I'm more than okay, that the life I built without them is better than anything they could have given me because it's mine. It's real. It's not contingent on becoming someone they could be proud of or shrinking myself small enough to fit their idea of acceptable. I would tell them that their post, their celebration of my leaving, it was the best thing that ever happened to me, because it showed me exactly who they were, and it freed me from ever having to wonder. She nodded. Do you need to tell them that? No, I said. I think I just needed to know it myself. The cat is sleeping on the windowsill right now, in the sun. The apartment smells like the curry I made last night, warm and complex. I have a meeting in an hour with my boss about a new project. Something challenging, something I proposed, something that might lead to another promotion. Tomorrow I'm having dinner with friends, real friends. The kind who text to check in, who remember small things, who show up. Next month I'm taking a weekend trip to the coast. First vacation I've planned in years. I'll stay in a cheap motel, walk on the beach, eat too much seafood, read a book I've been saving. My life is small by most measures, quiet, unremarkable, but it's mine, and no one gets to call that a failure. Sometimes, late at night, I still think about that number, 3,217 likes, 3,000 people who agreed I was a leech. that my leaving was worth celebrating. I used to let that number hurt me, used to imagine each person behind each click, each stranger who saw me reduced to a punchline and thought, yes, this is right, this is justified. But lately I've started thinking about it differently. Those 3,000 people didn't know me, didn't know about the layoff or the applications or the part-time jobs or the rent I paid or the life I was trying to build in the margins of everyone else's expectations. They just saw what they were shown, and what they were shown was designed to make them feel superior, validated, righteous. They were used, just like I was. The difference is I figured it out. I saw the shape of the thing I'd been living inside, the narrative I'd been assigned, the role I'd been given, scapegoat, failure, leech. And I stepped out of it. Not with revenge, not with destruction, just with truth. And then I walked away. I don't know what happened to Emma's marriage. I don't know if my parents ever talked about me after I stopped answering their calls. I don't know if they saw my promotion, my new apartment, my life continuing without them. I don't know if they regret it. And here's the thing I've learned. I don't need to know. Their story is their story. Whatever they tell themselves about what happened, about who I was and why I left and what it all means, that's theirs to carry. I have my own story now. It's not the one they wrote for me. It's not the one 3,000 people liked. It's quieter than that. Smaller, true in ways that don't require witnesses. It's the story of a person who was hurt and left and survived and built something else. It's the story of learning that enough is enough. It's the story of silence, not as punishment, not as weapon, but as peace. The light is fading now through the window. The cat stretches, yawns, settles back into sleep. I should start dinner, should prep for tomorrow's meeting, should do the 100 small things that make up a life. But for a moment, I just sit here in the quiet, in the home I made, in the life I chose, in the absence of people who celebrated my leaving, and I feel something I couldn't have imagined that night in March, sitting on the cheap futon in the aquarium light, reading those comments, seeing that number climb. I feel grateful, not for what they did. I'll never be grateful for that. But for what it showed me, that I could survive their cruelty, that I could build something better, that I was never the problem, and that sometimes the best revenge isn't making them understand. It's living well without them. It's knowing you're enough. It's closing the door on the people who celebrated when you left, and never looking back.